Hi there, welcome back to another episode of Sacred Wild Man. My name is Roy, and today I'd like to share a topic with you on sexual transmutation as well as misdirected sexual energy. And this topic is inspired by kind of just my own process here in this wild year of 2020. And how this topic started off was right around about 2 weeks ago. I started to notice myself suddenly having this urge to look at pornography. Now, when I caught that, I was like, okay, let me pay attention to what is going on here, because that wasn't something that was really in my consciousness for quite some time. And after I kind of journaled, meditated, wrote out what it was that I was noticing, I isolated for myself that this urge had to do with the damming up of my energy in other places. And speaking specifically about like a dam that holds back the water. Now for me, that has mainly been, self-expression during this year of 2020, across social media platforms and just like the general collective, walking down the street, going grocery shopping. There's just something you feel in the air, or at least I certainly feel it quite strongly. And it just feels like there's this muzzle on me that whatever I want to share, especially as I look into kind of alternate narratives on everything that is going on. It's one of those things where it deviates from the mainstream narrative, so most people don't want to hear it. And that's built up a lot of anger, aggression, resentment, sadness, bitterness. And it's been hard to share and express that with people. There's a few, probably can count on just one hand the number of people I've been able to express this to, but at the same time, it's not how I wish it was, and that's something I have to kind of curtail and take my own responsibility for, knowing that it's not my job to change or save people, and that's not something I can do anyways. So once I isolated that was what was causing this damming up of this energy and becoming misdirected into wanting to look at pornography, that faded. And then I had to ask myself some questions like, okay, so how do I want to express this? How do I want to move forward with this energy? Now, I imagine that there are many men out there during this time who could be experiencing the same thing. This damming up of their own energy, and perhaps a lot of frustration, confusion, becoming distracted by certain things. For example, I've started a lot of new books, probably 5 or 6 new books, but I haven't made much headway through any of them. It just feels like I'm kind of jumping from one thing to another, but not really ever settling anywhere. And is it even going through my head when I'm reading it? So if you are experiencing this in 2020, I would like to kind of propose to you this idea of perhaps your sexual energy is being misdirected. Perhaps there's one direct thing or a couple of direct things where you're trying to make headway. You're trying to either express yourself or make progress on, but it just feels like you keep hitting up against a wall. Now, in order to address that directly, you actually would then have to harness your sexual energy and direct it straight toward that thing. Now, if any of this sounds confusing or just completely foreign, I'm going to read just a few excerpts about this idea of sexual transmutation. The very popular book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, has a whole chapter devoted to it. So I'll go ahead and read some of that to you right now. Intemperance in sex habits is just as detrimental as intemperance in habits of drinking and eating. In this age in which we live, an age that began with World War I, intemperance in habits of sex is common. This orgy of indulgence may account for the shortage of great leaders. No one can avail of the forces of creative imagination while dissipating them. Humans are the only creatures on Earth that violate nature's purpose in this connection. Every other animal indulges its sex nature in moderation, and with purpose that harmonizes with the laws of nature. Every other animal responds to the call of sex only in season. The human inclination is to declare open season. Sex transmutation is simple and easily explained. It means the switching of the mind from thoughts of physical expression to thoughts of some other nature. When harnessed and redirected along other lines, the positive attributes of this motivating force may be used as powerful creative forces in literature, art, or in any other profession or calling, including, of course, the accumulation of riches. The transmutation of sex energy calls for the exercise of willpower, to be sure, but the reward is worth the effort. The desire for sexual expression is inborn and natural. The desire cannot and should not be submerged or eliminated, but it should be given an outlet through forms of expression that enrich the body, mind, and spirit. If not given this form of outlet, transmutation, it will seek outlets through purely physical channels. So these quotes really helped hammer home the importance of sexual transmutation for me. And if you think about your sexual energy as your vital life force energy, it is in fact how you're created, it's very important seeing why that needs to be in flow and why it needs to have a direction to move. As Bruce Lee says, running water never grows stale. So if that sexual energy is being held back, dammed, or impeded in any way, it's going to create probably some neurotic patterns, just as I noticed in myself. Now, an example of this, as I had mentioned earlier, this sudden urge that I noticed to look at porn. You can call it eroticized rage, or I don't know, there's probably some other terms out there, but that's a really helpful one, is to think about how if you feel as if you've been blocked and impeded and you're just stagnant all of 2020, that rage, frustration, anger is going to seek an outlet somehow. You just can't hold that in yourself the entire time. And if you do, it'll probably manifest as some health symptoms, and your body will likely reflect those things. So you're going to find a way to seek it out, to express it. Now, why this happens so often with sex and pornography is, as Napoleon Hill mentioned, is that if it's not given a form of expression, it's going to seek physical expression. And if you have noticed, during this time of the pandemic and quarantine, Pornhub has actually made their whole, I think, subscription or whatever free. Now, I got my eyes on you, Pornhub, because I think that is something that is not helpful to people at all. Now, some might disagree and say, hey, what's the harm, right? Like, I'm stuck at home, there's nothing else to do. I work remotely, but I'm just stuck in home. Believe whatever the mainstream media says about what this is. This is a way I can relieve myself. Sure. The problem is, though, especially with a lot of young men that I have worked with, I usually ask this question. If they're struggling with porn or sex addiction, I ask them, how often do they ejaculate? So that's an important thing, is to separate orgasm from ejaculation. They're two separate things. And they will often say, I do it pretty much daily. I ejaculate pretty much daily. Now, that is going to have a huge impact on a person's well-being. It's going to very much damage and screw up your hormonal system, and you're depleting yourself of a lot of that vital life force energy. Now, I have another quote here by Dr. Stephen Chang, who wrote the book, The Tao of Sexology. And I don't know how he measured this, or whoever measured this. It's pretty funny to consider how they figured this out. But he talks about the caloric energy that is within semen and the male's ejaculate. So I'll go ahead and read that to you right now. When the average male ejaculates, he loses about 1 tablespoon of semen. According to scientific research, the nutritional value of this amount of semen is equal to that of 2 pieces of New York steak, 10 eggs, 6 oranges, and 2 lemons combined. That includes proteins, vitamins, minerals, amino acids, everything. The semen also contains a great deal of vital energy. Therefore, an ejaculation also represents a great deal of lost vital energy. This is demonstrated by the exhaustion felt by the man after ejaculation. So I know that quote might just seem completely out there, way out in left field, but it's something I want you to consider the next time you find yourself having this urge to masturbate and ejaculate, because your vital life force energy is on the line anytime you do that. Now, you have a lot of men who swear by, the movement, the no-fap movement, who talk about how, whatever number of days in the no-fap, they notice that, I just feel a lot more energetic, I feel more confident, I feel also a little bit more aggressive, women seem to be noticing more, and then it can go into some other ends where people talk about, there's like a running joke about, I have these superpowers. The comments in a lot of those YouTube videos are just hilarious, of people saying like, day 365 of NoFap, I can see through walls, I'm levitating, things along those lines. However, a downside to the NoFap movement is that if the only thing you're doing is avoiding ejaculation, right, that will create some of that pent-up frustration and aggression. So if you think of a male bull, right, very aggressive, and then once it's castrated, it's very docile. Now, for people who practice NoFap, but they are not finding another outlet in which to express and transmute that sexual energy, it's going to build up pent-up frustration, anger, aggression, and that can spread into areas of your life that you might not intend to, whether this is a romantic partner, family, friends, workplace. You might find yourself lashing out or just having little patience, and in situations where you might not mean to do that. So this is the importance of being able to transmute and channel that energy somewhere else. You can also do a practice of grounding. Now, grounding is a way to kind of settle that sexual energy. If you think of it as electricity, right? And then, lightning, and then the lightning rod grounds the lightning. Ways in which you can practice grounding your sexual energy, if you are just feeling too, on the edge, is you can take cold showers. You can do breath work, for example, transformational breath work. You can exercise, perhaps journal or meditate. Yoga, Qigong, Tai Chi, those are all helpful forms of beginning to kind of ground and move and circulate your sexual energy. Now, if you enjoyed this video, I encourage you to take a look at the links that I have down below. There's a link to my website, www.sacredwildman.com, which has more content that I've put there. And there's also a link to my PayPal if you would like to donate to support the work that I do. And with that, I hope you have a great rest of your day.